Hi, and welcome to episode 6 of The More You Nole, a podcast about Florida State University. I'm your host, Mike, Director of Social Media for Florida State's Office of Admissions. Thanks for downloading this week's episode. If you haven't subscribed to the show yet, you can find The More You Nole on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. You can also find us on our website, admissions.fsu.edu. On this week's episode, I speak with Dean of Florida State's Libraries, Gale Estchmaier. Dean Etschmaier is a champion for our libraries and the services they offer. We'll discuss the intricacies of the university's library system, the surprising number of services they offer, and how she earned the title of Mutinous Librarian. We hope you enjoy the interview. All right, I'm here with Gale Estchmaier, Dean of Florida State University's Libraries. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I've been in libraries for more than 30 years, and I think that libraries are the most exciting place on campus. Prior to coming to Florida State in September of 2018, I was the Dean of the University Library at San Diego State University, and before that, I was the Associate University Librarian for Public Services at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. I come to libraries naturally. I grew up loving to read, and I became really enamored with libraries, realizing how important they are and how central they are to the teaching, learning, and research mission of a university.
Great. So like you alluded to, you're pretty new to Florida State. You've been here since September of 2018. How have your first 2 years been?
Well, except for these months, which is a huge change for the whole world, it's been incredible. I am so excited about the faculty and staff that I work with in the libraries, about the students at Florida State, how committed they are, and how important Florida State University is in Tallahassee and in the state of Florida. I really come to libraries with a passion for education as a driver for social and economic mobility. And I think libraries are central to that. And I think Florida State is the kind of institution that may not get the students who get the perfect SAT scores, but they're students who really value education and they really work hard and they do incredible things every day. So I'm really excited and happy to be at Florida State.
Great. So, like you said, you've pretty much spent your entire career in libraries. What made you want to become a librarian?
Well, it was a little serendipitous. I started out as an undergraduate studying music, and I had dreams of being an oboist in a major symphony, and I quickly realized that that was probably not in my future. Playing oboe is a humbling experience, and as disappointing as that was, I realized that my talents were different, and I looked at what I could do with a music degree and looked at libraries because I thought I would be a music librarian. And I fell into my first academic library job, and I was cataloging music, which means I was looking at all of these vinyl recordings and later CDs and making them accessible in the library catalog. And I ended up falling into administrative roles and broadening my interest in libraries and really becoming excited about the entire enterprise of libraries and how much of a difference it can make for students who are studying and doing research.
Cool. So lots of our guests, almost all of them actually so far, have attended FSU prior to taking a job on campus. But as somebody whose alma mater isn't Florida State, I was really curious to know what drew you to the university in particular.
Well, I actually attended state universities for my undergraduate and my graduate degrees. I went to the State University of New York at Stony Brook as an undergraduate for studying music, and then I went to the State University of New York at Albany for my master's in library science. And that started my library career in academic libraries. And It was really after I was at George Washington University for some time, and I decided I was ready for the next step to move into a dean's or director's position, when I attended the University of Pennsylvania and achieved a doctorate. And during the research that I was doing, I looked at mergers of higher education institutions, and I looked at community colleges and technical institutes, and I realized what a difference public education makes in the lives of everyone, not just the students who attend, but everybody in a region. And it made me realize that I was drawn to the public kinds of institutions that really drive the economy of a city, of a region, of a state, and that change the world. Those kinds of libraries change lives. And Florida State is exactly that kind of university. It is an economic driver in Florida, and it changes the lives of the students who attend Florida State. And that really was my journey.
Great. So I want to get into kind of the libraries themselves now. Florida State's main two libraries are Stroger and Dirac. Can you explain the difference to them, since most of our listeners are incoming freshmen?
Sure. So Stroger Library is located near the Humanities and Social Sciences building, and it is probably the main library on the Florida State University campus. And it has the most seating, and it is really what students often call Club Strohs, because it is a center for community. It's a place where students work together on collaborative projects. It's a place where they get help in all kinds of different areas of their research. They can take workshops. We have a lot of outreach activities. We've done escape rooms as a way to learn library skills in a fun way. We have lots of activities. Dirac is the science library, and it also has a lot of those outreach activities, but it is located on the other part of the campus, closer to the science buildings, and it has the library faculty who specialize in the sciences and helping with teaching, learning, and research in the sciences and engineering.
You know, I've spent time in both in my time at Florida State, and I definitely have their own unique vibes to them.
Yes, they both have Starbucks.
Yes, it's crucial for the library to have a Starbucks at a college.
It is.
So we often think of libraries as places where we should probably be quiet most of the time, but at college, that's not really how it works. Can you go over the noise policy in the libraries? Because I think it's really interesting.
So I think we recognize that deep learning occurs when students are really talking with other students about the ideas that they've learned in class, where they're working on projects together. And we recognize that that noise is part of learning. It's a really important part of learning, and it's what really constitutes deep learning. And so we do have some areas where people work individually and they're very quiet and contemplative, but many of the areas in Stroger especially are areas for people to work together, to collaborate. Stroger is really a center for intellectual community. And Dirac has areas that are separate as well, areas that are quiet study, but also areas where people can work together. And we recognize that there is a fine line between social and intellectual development, and that sometimes that's blurred. And so people have social interactions as well as academic interactions in the libraries. And we're working with students in those libraries as well. So our expert faculty and staff are working to help students using data, doing analysis with data, doing 3D prints of various objects, learning about digital scholarship. So when we're talking with students about those kinds of things, we're making noise too. We also have tutoring at both Stroger and Dirac, and we offer tutoring in the evenings. In our current environment, we're doing that online, and I'm very proud to say that even though the buildings have been closed these last months, the library is absolutely open and working with students and faculty constantly.
What do you think makes kind of in general libraries such a good place to study? Is it just the mental aspect of walking in the door and knowing you're in a place of knowledge, or is there something more to it?
Well, there's actually literature about this. And as a librarian, I have to refer to the literature. I think there are many different aspects. Literature supports the idea that when students are in an environment where their peers are doing the same kind of work, it encourages them to focus and to learn. There's another aspect, and that is having the books around. And even though so many of our resources are online, there's a psychological element of having books around you that helps you to focus and learn and contemplate. So I think there are lots of different aspects. Now, I think one of the most important assets in the library is the expert faculty and staff there to help. So we not only create a space environment that encourages learning and research, but we also have the expertise to help people when they get stuck. And that's something I would really encourage people coming into the campus to think about. We have all of these people in the library who are experts who can help them and who want to help them. And I really encourage them to take advantage of that.
That's actually my next question. I was wondering if a student does need help with something in the libraries, what's the best way to get it?
We have faculty and staff all over the library. And in this environment, it's online. So we have a chat reference box on our website where people can click and get answers and assistance in the work they're doing. When they're in the physical libraries, we have faculty with specific discipline expertise, faculty who give workshops on data analysis and visualization, and faculty who help with finding the resources that are needed for a project or for a research endeavor. And there are people every place in the library to help with those kinds of needs.
Right. And if I don't know where to start, I guess just start at the circulation desk?
Start at that desk, and they do a triage, and they will get you to the right people.
They've always gotten me to the right people, whether it's a question I had as a student or walking in there as an employee. They're always really helpful.
Mm-hmm. And one of our hopes is that we're able to do some redesign of the physical space to make it a little bit more intuitive.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a maze since the part of the building was added on at a later date, so the elevators don't all go to the same floors, I know. So it can definitely be a bit tricky to get around if you haven't learned the lay of the land yet.
It is. And this is one of my big goals, to do some renovations of Stroger especially, to make it an even better environment for learning and research.
Just don't get rid of those Herman Miller chairs. They're the most comfortable I've ever sat in. More comfortable than my office chair, even.
Well, and that's very intentional. We look very carefully at the kinds of furnishings that we put in the libraries because we want students to have varied seating and be able to choose the Herman Miller chairs when they're really focusing on something, or, one of the really comfortable lounge seating options for when they want to just kind of relax and maybe reflect. But we think about that a lot.
Yeah, the furniture in the library is I think almost all of it is modular. I've seen you've got these kind of like benches that are covered with awnings, and I've seen students like push two of them together to make it's like a tent basically, since the awning goes around the back too. So if you push two of them together, you've got like a little private study cube that really no one can even see into, which is pretty cool.
Exactly. And I think we are looking at group study rooms and how we can even enhance the furnishings that we have. So on the third floor and the second floor, we have some of the older furniture and we'll actually be replacing some of that over the summer. And I'm really excited about that because we want students to feel comfortable, but also be in an inspiring environment. And the environment communicates to students that they're important, that we expect them to be able to learn and accomplish wonderful things.
Yeah, I think my personal favorite are probably, I think it might be just for the graduate students, the private study carrels. When I was in grad school, those things like saved me during test prep. You walk in there, it's like a little cubicle, you shut the door, and you can like really super focus on what you're learning. You can't even be distracted by other things in the library.
Yes, that's absolutely true. So we need to have varied spaces for different kinds of learning.
Okay, I want to switch topics here. This is kind of a cross-reference between kind of FSU stuff, but also a title that you picked up that I find really, really interesting. How did you pick up the title of Mutinous Librarian?
Well, when I arrived at Florida State, there had been ongoing discussions about the growing costs of some of the journal packages that we purchased. So the publishers had this idea, about 15 years ago, to bundle the titles that they publish and provide those titles for one purchase price. And the biggest cost item was the publisher Elsevier, and that cost about $2 million a year. And it was just not sustainable because Elsevier was charging an increase of 3 to 4% every year. And that's a lot on a $2 million price tag. So there had been all of these discussions with the faculty about how we could sustain the costs of these journals. And we were negotiating with Elsevier about the costs, and we felt that we were paying a disproportionate price. And Elsevier was coming back to us saying, if you didn't purchase these titles in a bundle, it would cost $1 million a year more for the individual articles that faculty and students wanted. So I arrived in the middle of these negotiations, and I knew that they expected that as a new dean, I would cave to the pressure of just paying the price and listening to that rhetoric. And I had had enough experience in my career that I just didn't do that. So I went into the negotiations saying, we value these titles that you provide. We'd like to come up with a reasonable cost that we can sustain over the next years. But if we're not able to, we are ready to only purchase the top 150 titles that are being used on our campus. And they didn't believe that I would do it. And so we did terminate our big deal or multi-title package with them. And they cut off access to those titles that we no longer subscribe to in March of 2019. And then we did analysis of how many requests we got for articles from those titles. And instead of the $1 million, we had spent about $20,000 on those titles. So we had a huge savings that we could reinvest in books and journals that our faculty and students desperately needed. And I was asked to do an interview with the Financial Times. And the interviewer in the article said that not all librarians were as mutinous as I was. And it was really an article about how this change was driving publishers like Elsevier to reconsider their cost models. So I proudly am the Mutinous Librarian, and I can show you on Zoom. I have a button that our faculty have made that says Mutinous Librarian, and I'm very proud of it.
That's so great. And I understand that other schools, I think the University of California system has just pulled a similar move with Elsevier. So you're really kind of leading the way in that charge of reforming the way that libraries handle these journal subscriptions.
We are, and the UCs actually terminated their contract after we did. So I do like to put that out there. Recently, the State University of New York system and UNC Chapel Hill terminated their big deal agreement with Elsevier. And I think there's a real trend that libraries are really questioning the value of these packages of all these titles and really looking carefully at which titles are most used on their campuses. One of my colleagues likes to compare this with cable television and the full package of hundreds of channels as opposed to selecting streamed content from different providers or just a basic package.
All right, so getting back to kind of the libraries and the services they offer, What type of amenities do FSU's libraries offer? Because I know you can check out a lot more than just books and kind of journal articles.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a lot of online material. So we have streaming media. So you can watch films that are streamed from your home. We have online journals. So lots of journal titles are available electronically. We have packages of electronic books. Right now, we're working very hard to identify textbooks that we might be able to purchase online so that students can get access to those rather than having to buy those textbooks. We have data sets. We have about $8 million a year in materials that we either purchase on a one-time basis or subscribe to. So all of the newspapers, for instance, are available online through the FSU Library's website. We have lots of electronic books, lots of music online, lots of videos online. But again, I think the most important thing we offer is the expertise of our faculty and staff.
Yeah, and you also have, I understand, like actual like electronics. Like if a student needs a video camera to work on a project, you can even check that out at the library. Or even I saw a post on I think it was on the FSU Reddit community a couple of weeks ago about a student who was stuck in the library and didn't have a laptop charger. And someone just responded to just go to the circulation desk. They've got one you can check out. I mean, they really have absolutely everything you could need at the library.
That's true. We check out a lot of equipment, the video cameras, the laptops, the chargers.
And there's someone there to help you with it. One of your media librarians, I want to say his name was David, but it was a year ago, so I'm not totally sure. We found some old VHS recruitment tapes in our storage room here at admissions, and he helped us digitize them so I can pull little like 1-minute clips from them and share them on our social media channels. And I thought that was so much fun. And it was just so great that I could just walk down to the library and have someone help me out.
It is. That's Dave Rodriguez, and he has a lot of media expertise, and he is streaming a lot of those DVDs and VHS tapes for classes right now. The other thing that we have that people are not always aware of is our special collections. And I don't know if you ever had a chance to explore special collections when you were a student, but this is a real research center. In a way, it's like a lab. These are rare materials that exist one or two places in the world. And then the archival materials are things like original letters and photographs and documents. And those are such rich research materials. One of the things that I was really impressed with is we were looking at the archival materials related to enslaved people. And a couple of the documents that were brought out included the diary of a slave owner and a bill of sale for a 17-year-old female slave. And there is something breathtaking to see a handwritten document selling a human being and describing that human being. It takes your breath away, and it makes the tragedy of slavery real and emotional the way it should be. It's very different than just reading that slavery existed in a history book. And those kinds of documents help you to really see historical events in a way that you emotionally connect to, that makes them come alive, and that makes you really reinterpret history through today's lens.
Yeah, I remember seeing, I think maybe just a year ago or maybe a little longer in the special collections, right outside the actual special collections, there's like a little kind of museum space that I remember seeing a bunch of documents related to Emmett Till in there. And I thought that was absolutely fascinating.
It is. And we have so many of those kinds of documents. We have documents from the Napoleonic era where we can see field notes from Napoleon. The Emmett Till collection is one of our signature collections, and we've brought in experts to speak about Emmett Till and the story of Emmett Till and how it's being remembered in today's chronicles. So we have incredible materials, and it's another thing I would encourage students come in, look at those materials, explore them, and it can change your life.
This actually leads kind of almost perfectly into my next question. I wanted to know, what's the coolest thing you've seen in our special collections?
The coolest thing. I think that bill of sale for a slave, it just sent chills up my spine because it made it so emotionally engaging to me. It made it so real. But there are so many things in the library and in special collections. One of the things, so we have a librarian who is doing her dissertation on this book that is about a convent, and the three women in this book are talking to each other and supporting each other spiritually. And the fact that there are no men in this book at all, and the kinds of support they're showing each other is just incredible. We have another book that you can see with chains on it, because that reflects the value that people placed on books from that time period. And, books were treasures. And we look at books quite differently today. But we also have a death mask from Napoleon. We have just incredible things. If people are interested in the history of Florida State, we have china from the early days of Florida State University when it was the Florida College of Women. We have all kinds of photographs from those early years. There are just so many exciting things. It's kind of like asking me what my favorite book is. It's like a collage. There are so many incredible things.
That's good. All right. So I've got some fun questions for us now. What's your favorite thing about Florida State?
My favorite thing about Florida State is how student-focused everybody in the community is. Everybody is so committed to helping students succeed. It's incredible.
Okay, so when you have to get lunch on or I guess around campus, what's your favorite local place to eat at?
My favorite local place. I haven't actually been eating out that much. I go to the club quite a bit. My favorite restaurant in Tallahassee so far has been Sage.
Good choice. I'm up on the north side of town. If you want to go out for a nice date, definitely take your date up to Sage. Yeah, really good choice. Let's see. We're all stuck at home right now. So what are you binging? Books, TV, movies, etc.?
So I'm doing a lot of things. I've recently been reading a lot about the South and Florida and books that are connected with Florida and the South. I read Colson Whitehead's Nickel Boys, which is just incredible and just won a prize, of course. We just had a screening of the film Just Mercy, which is about Brian Stevenson's effort to really help people who didn't get correct kinds of legal representation and were put on death row. But the book Just Mercy is amazing. I just read some old things like The Secret Life of Bees. Our own Diane Roberts books are very interesting to me right now. So I read Tribal, which was my introduction to Southeast Florida's football culture, because that was really new to me. And I'm also reading this book called Mama's Last Hug, which is about emotions in animals.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Definitely binging a lot of books, which is completely unsurprising for the Dean of Libraries. Okay, our final question that I asked to all of our guests, if you could only give our incoming students one piece of advice, what would it be?
It would be, you are surrounded by people who want to help you and who have incredible expertise. Reach out to us. Don't be afraid to ask. Really take advantage of all the people on Florida State's campus who want to help you.
It's a great answer. Thanks so much for being here, Gail Eetchmeyer, Dean of Florida State University's Libraries. Thanks again, and go Noles.
Go Noles.
Thanks again to Dean Etschmaier for her time, and also to Megan Bonnell in FSU Libraries for helping to arrange the interview. If you'd like to learn more about Florida State's libraries and their services, check out lib.fsu.edu. You can also follow them on social media. They're at FSU Libraries on Twitter and Instagram, and Florida State University Libraries on Facebook. If you've been enjoying The More You Know, we'd really appreciate you taking a few minutes to rate and review the show in Apple Podcasts or on your podcast app of choice. Word of mouth is a huge help to us as well, so please also share the show with any of your friends or family members who may enjoy it. We're hoping to introduce a listener mail segment in future episodes, so if you have any questions about Florida State that you'd like answered or feedback on the show, please email admissions@fsu.edu and include the word podcast in the subject line. You can also reach us on social media. We're at FSU Admissions on Twitter and Facebook and at FSU.admissions on Instagram. As always, our theme music is the world-renowned Florida State University Marching Chiefs, recordings courtesy of Mark Records, Clarence, New York, markcustom.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show in Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast app of choice. Thanks again for listening, and go Noles!